Welcome to AUDL Weekly, the show all about ultimate stories, perspectives, conversations, and more. My name is Evan Lepler, and we are nearing the midway point of the 2022 season. In fact, after this coming weekend, we'll have played exactly 75 of the 150 games on the full regular season schedule. But obviously the best is still ahead in the aftermath of some fascinating action over the course of Week 6 this past weekend. Coming up on the show tonight, Adam and Daniel join me for a very intriguing toss-up, and later Matt Smith has Dallas veteran Kevin Richardson in a brand new up line and out of bounds. But first, so much to toss around from a wild 14-game slate that we witnessed over the past 7 days. You're watching AUDL Weekly on AUDL.TV, so stick around. All right, welcome back. Here we go with my imitation of Chris Berman's fastest 3 minutes in football. So much action, not sure I can squeeze it in that quickly, but we might as well call this the fastest few minutes in Frisbee. Starting in the South Division this past weekend, the Carolina Flyers utilized different O-line cutters virtually every week, but Alex Davis has been the constant. He scored a career-high 8 goals on Friday. Flyers rout the Legion in Dallas 26-18. Davis played well on Saturday night too in Austin. However, the Soul with an exhilarating second half comeback that began with 3 straight breaks. Ethan Pollock hand-blocked Terrence Mitchell in the closing seconds of regulation to seal Austin's 21-20 victory. First loss of the season for the Flyers. Other 2 teams in the South, Atlanta and Tampa Bay. They played a tight game down in Florida, but the Hustle overcame a 2-goal halftime deficit to prevail by 2. 18-16. Let's move to the East, where the Week 6 action actually began last Wednesday night. Montreal defeating Ottawa 24-21 as the Royale moved back above 500 at 4-3. Did not mind the Wednesday game. It was fun to watch last week. Montreal likely battling with Philly for that third playoff spot in the East. Philly now 3-3 following their third straight win. Phoenix take it 24-22 over Boston on Saturday. Meanwhile, top 2 in the East, New York and DC both take care of business. Breeze get a 5-goal win over the Glory on Friday evening, while New York absolutely pounded the Rush in Toronto on Saturday night, 25-8. Empire not only win in Toronto's longtime home varsity stadium for the first time, they also hand the Rush their largest margin of defeat in franchise history. To the Central Division, Madison scored with 8 seconds left to edge Pittsburgh 20-19. They scored the final 3 goals of the game to beat the Thunderbirds, while Chicago and Minnesota both roll in their games over Detroit and Indy, respectively. Union by 8 over the Mechanix, Winchell by 15 over the AlleyCats on Saturday night in St. Paul. Both Chicago and Minnesota currently riding 3-game winning streaks into Week 7. And last but not least, out west, the Oakland Spiders learned a lesson about the quality of the new expansion teams. Salt Lake smashes the Spiders 30-21 on Friday, and then Colorado also overcomes Oakland with a 22-16 victory in Denver on Saturday. 4-1 Shred hosting the 4-0 Summit this coming Friday night. More on that game in a bit. Elsewhere, Pacific Northwest trip for Los Angeles. Aviators escape rainy Portland with a dramatic 1-score win, 21-20. LA improved to 2-2 for the season with a win on Saturday, but then slipped back below 500 on Sunday in Seattle as the Cascades cruised to a 23-14 home victory. That is now 2 in a row for the Cascades after they started the season 0-5. That's the rundown from an exciting and impactful Week 6. We'll talk about what all these results mean and what's coming up in Week 7 as Adam and Daniel join me for another spirited disc debate as we continue here on AUDL Weekly. back on AUDL Weekly. Delighted to be joined, as always, by Adam Ruffner and Daniel Cohen, the co-hosts of the Swing Pass podcast. Gentlemen, welcome. The hair looks magnificent tonight. Let's jump into our toss-up segment with a little chat about the New York Empire, who continue to move one star from one line to the other and vice versa. So, Adam, let's start with this. What's the bigger deal for the Empire? Jeff Babbitt now playing O, or Ben Yacht now playing D?
You know, as much as I love seeing the big guy get shifted into offense and just score all these kind of semi-truck in cruise control going 60-mile-an-hour goals, that is for Jeff Babbitt. The implementation of Ben Yacht on defense for this Empire team has been kind of a marvel to behold, because we've always known him to be this MVP level, 2 times over playmaker on offense. But to watch him sort of recalibrate a bit and be just as involved in New York's attack on the defense, I think is something to take note of, you know, and especially as New York continues to tinker with their lineups, it just gives them one more wrinkle as they head towards obviously another deep postseason run. And if you watch Yacht in some of their set piece plays off of double team traps, if you ever see a swilly disc go up against this New York defense right now, Yacht is all over the place. And it's just, they get the MVP off of a turn now too. It's kind of an eye opener to watch what New York is doing with their MVP.
Most interesting thing about what you said is you called Jeff Babbitt the big man moving on to O, and like Yacht's got 4 inches on Jeff, although probably far fewer muscles. Daniel, what do you think? Babbitt on O?
Jeff Babbitt. You could fit 2 Ben Yachts in a Jeff Babbitt. Like
I don't know about
horizontally, like you could line them up and fit
horizontally. Sure.
Yeah.
So What a luxury New York has to be able to shift who's been arguably the best offensive player in the entire league the past 2, maybe even 3 seasons, shift him over to defense. To me, that is a much bigger deal than Babbitt shifting to offense. We've seen them shift Babbitt to offense periodically, and like we've seen Yacht shift over to defense too, but this was the first game ever in Yacht's career where he played exclusively D points against Toronto, not a single O point. And that dramatic of a shift, having, like Adam said, having him on the counterattack with Antoine Davis, with Jabron Meeser now, like that cutting core is extremely dynamic, and it's just ridiculous at this point. The amount of talent New York has to just say, hey, let's take our best deep threat, the best deep threat in the league, and just play him on defense. Have this 6'6" guy running around, dominating the deep space. One of the things that's made him the MVP candidate the past 2 years is his ability to get blocks. So like he's no slouch defensively. He was a primary D-line player for the Wind Chill in the past. It's exciting for New York, the concept of having this offensive weapon on defense now.
Yeah, well said. And the other thing about this weekend is Yacht didn't play any deep points, mostly because the Empire O-line never got broken, so they never had 2 O points in a row. If they had been broken, he certainly would have played at least 1 deep point, you would think. All right, Daniel, topic number 2. Let's talk about the Salt Lake Shred, who won by 9 over Oakland on Friday night. They're getting ready to play Colorado this weekend. But looking back at last week, who had the more impressive Friday night stat line for the Shred? Jordan Kerr's 8 assists, 3 goals, 595 yards, or Ben Green's 6 blocks, 2 goals, and 1 assist?
I mean, Jordan Kerr has had an incredible season, and it feels weird to say that these are the games that we've come to expect from him, where he's had 6+ assists every time the Shred have played this season. He has been by far their most consistent offensive weapon. All that being said, I was more impressed with Ben Green just because it was his Salt Lake Shred debut. He showed a lot of flashes of playmaking ability for the DC Breeze defense last year, had 10 blocks in 9 games. I think we expected him to fit into this Shred defense. He's just another one of those playmaking athletes they just have so many of on D-line, but to come in and get 6 blocks in your new AUDL debut with a new team, I think that was just beyond what I expected. I thought maybe a couple blocks, but he was laying out on underneath cuts. He was helping deep in the deep space. He looked like one of the core defenders for the Shred team that has already looked good defensively. So very excited for Ben Green just to see how he does the rest of the season. But what a start.
Adam, what do you think?
I don't want to take anything away from Ben Green's incredible debut at the Shred. He's obviously going to be another playmaker to a deep Shred playmaking defensive lineup. However, blocks are one of those stat categories that are a little bit random. They're not necessarily indicative always of direct defensive play. Coming by them can kind of come in bunches, as illustrated by a 6-block game. Few of those blocks were on just straight throwaways where he happened to get a hand on it. And again, not to take anything away from Green, but when we're looking at what Kerr is doing right now, we're talking about a potential MVP. I mean, if you go to his last 3 games alone, he has 22 assists, 11 goals, over 1,500 yards. He's averaging 20 yards per touch in the last 3 games. He's got 3 turnovers. I mean, what Jordan Kerr is doing week in, week out right now, I know we're talking about a 1-game sample size, but it's really not. It's just a zoomed in, sample of the larger thing that's happening right now, which is that Jordan Kerr looks like an MVP for the Salt Lake team. And I think that if they get a win this Friday against Colorado, we need to start talking about him as being the kind of favorite heading into the second half of the season.
Well argued. I love a good however to transfer the argument. Topic number 3, Adam, we'll start with you. It was a great lineup on Friday night, obviously, to start week 7. Who is more likely to win on the road this Friday? The DC Breeze at New York or the Madison Radicals at Chicago?
You always got to put me in the vice grip with these Madison challenges. I think normally I would say DC. I think that their ability to show up every single time against the Empire the past 3 seasons is very indicative of their own level of competitiveness in this league. But watching New York play right now, especially given the additions of this past weekend and them waxing Toronto by almost 20 goals, it's hard to pick against New York. I'm not saying that DC can't do it this Friday. I need to see it. And on the flip side of that, you have a Madison and Chicago rivalry, which always feels like a 2 or 3 goal difference at max. And a lot of times coming down to 1 or 2 goals. So I'm going to say Madison is more likely to get the upset against Chicago. Chicago is still integrating a lot of new pieces to their lineup. And they've actually been, I think, at a little bit of a disadvantage given all of the buys they've had over the past month. They've only played 3 games, league low right now, whereas Madison is kind of rounding into its midseason form, albeit being held together with a little bit of duct tape given some of their injuries and absences from their starting lineup. I think Madison will have a little bit more of an ability to jockey with Chicago, whereas playing New York right now, it just feels like any mistake you make is just going to be magnified 1,000 times over, as evidenced by the Rush just getting ran up by every single turnover they made.
Daniel, I don't know if the Cohen's curse will be involved in your answer, but who's more likely to win, DC or Madison this Friday?
So, unfortunately, I will not be in attendance in Chicago for the Madison-Chicago game, but the Cohen's curse, as we know, it only applies to Breeze-Stevens Field Radicals games. All that said, I don't know, I haven't been overly impressed by Madison. They just barely edged out these 2 road wins against Indianapolis and against Pittsburgh. I think Chicago's a much better team than those 2. So I'm going to take DC. The DC-New York rivalry, it's always going to be close. They lost by a few goals earlier this season, but these games typically come down to a goal or 2. As dominant as New York looked against Toronto, and I know DC played the same Toronto team and only won by a goal, this DC team is still leading the league in fewest turnovers per game. Just over 11 per game. New York is up at 13.8, I believe. So, DC is still playing as efficient as ever. They're still a top 4 team in the league. This is still going to be an extremely tight matchup. As much hype is surrounding New York at this point, I got to go with DC.
So are you saying DC will win?
Narrative.
Are you picking DC? That's the real question.
They're more likely. No, I didn't pick them straight up. That wasn't the question. It can be a different toss-up question if we want to go there.
Yeah. There certainly is a narrative of everyone overlooking DC and them going in to end New York's undefeated season, but I agree with y'all. It's hard to fathom that with what we've seen from New York these past few weeks. One thing to note, DC, New York back in week 1, just 18 turnovers in that game. That's the fewest turnovers in any game in the league through the first 6 weeks of the season. Topic number 4, Daniel, enough of what's the bigger deal or who's more impressive or more likely to win. Who you got Friday night in Salt Lake, the Summit or the Shred?
I took Colorado when they played in Colorado, and I'm going to take the Shred when they're playing in Salt Lake. I think home field advantage is going to be a big deal for these two teams. The Shred played like the better team for the majority of that game in Colorado. It felt a lot like that home crowd was the difference down the stretch, and Colorado having the momentum of that home crowd. And I think Salt Lake, they've put up 30-plus points in both home games so far. And while I think the Summit defense is going to be a lot better than what they faced with Seattle and Oakland, Salt Lake is still, I trust them more as an offense. I think their defense is very efficient, punching in breaks. I think they feel a little bit more fine-tuned than Colorado at this point. But no doubt it's going to be another close game. I am going to take Salt Lake, though.
Adam, there will be a little bit of a difference in the rosters compared to a couple weeks ago when they meet on Friday night. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see an infusion of the young talent for both of these teams. Salt Lake is re-adding Ben Hoffman and Garrett Martin to their D-line attack, and notably Colorado will be adding Alex Atkins, as well as Danny Landisman, who looked really good for them in his Summit debut this last weekend. I'm just really excited for this matchup. I'm going to push my answer for a couple more moments because I just want to say how exciting this game should be. It's going to be a fireworks show. I expect it to kind of be a game approaching maybe 50 total goals. I don't really expect much defense. And that's why I'm going to agree with Daniel. I think a lot of these West Coast matchups right now have a looser feel to them. And because of that, I think that the home team gets to ride a significantly important surge of energy in these sorts of environments. And I just see the Shred playing with that right now at home. They have an urgency. They have a Jordan Kerr. And I think that that's going to be the balance. I think it's going to be a 1 or 2 goal game again, but I'm going to take the home team in the Shred.
Alrighty, right now Colorado is the undefeated team. They're 4-0. The Shred are 4-1. Maybe a topic for next week. If Colorado can go in there and get the win, do we start talking about a possible undefeated season for the Summit? But that's maybe a conversation for next week. Adam and Daniel, thank you as always for your time. You can hear their full Week 7 preview on the Swing Pass podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Nat Smith's Up, Line, and Out of Bounds on the other side of the break, but first, it's another Cohen's Cut.
What's up, AUDL fans? Daniel Cohen here with this week's Cohen's Cut. Today we're going to be looking at how Dallas's Dalton Smith single-handedly destroyed the New York Empire zone in the 2019 AUDL Championship game.
A great point by Smith. He told Olsen to find Peruta, and that extra feed opened up Smith.
So in 2019, we saw New York periodically go to this zone defense to try and throw off opposing offenses. Zone looks typically force offenses to take their time and make lots of throws, gradually working the disc downfield with shorter passes. Now the Roughnecks are a very give-and-go friendly team. Even when up against matchup-based person defense, they frequently rely on quick throws between handlers to move the disc and create opportunities for the offense. Driving this give-and-go offense is Dalton Smith. Smith is a talented hybrid who has the ability and foresight to see the flow of the offense in advance, then initiate with tight window throws and immediate, decisive movement. Watch Smith initiate the sequence with a quick pivot fake to move the mark. This fake allows him to then break the mark, as he quickly pivots back towards Kevin Richardson to begin the offensive motion. By releasing the disc as he's pivoting, the pivot becomes his first step in following the throw. Now at this point, Smith is ahead of the defense. He's off running before the zone can react. Propelled by his pivot, Smith gets the disc back easily with forward momentum, gaining a few yards in the process. Now as he's initiating this give and go, he sees the wing defender creeping in towards the middle of the field, leaving Connor Olsen open on the outside. Reading this early allows him to swing the disc out to Olsen with no hesitation, keeping the defense off balance and preventing them from resetting. Because Smith is continuing to push downfield, this pulls in the deep defender Mike Drost, who comes up to stop the throw back to Smith. Seeing this shift, Smith signals to Olsen to hit teammate Henry Ferruda on the sideline, who had been previously covered by Drost. With Drost forced to abandon the deep space, there's now no one left downfield to stop Dalton Smith from catching the easy goal from Ferruda. These 5 throws took just over 6 seconds combined. Each player on the Dallas offense played a role, but it was Smith who initiated and facilitated the sequence to perfection. Thanks for watching, everyone, and be sure to join us next time for another Cohen's Cut.
What's up, AUDL world? Welcome to another episode of Upline and Out of Bounds. Today I am joined by an AUDL veteran out of Dallas, K-Rich, Mr. Kevin Richardson. How's it going, Kevin?
Good, Matt. Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm stoked for the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So with that, we're just going to hop right into the introduction. So first question for you, hometown.
I am from Keller, Texas, just north of Fort Worth here in DFW.
Cool. Current age.
I'm 36.
Hey, love to see it.
That's right.
Did you attend college? If so, what degree or major did you study?
I went to the University of North Texas in Denton. That's in Texas here. It's I got a degree in business management in 2009.
That's very cool. And what is your current occupation, career path? What are you doing with your life these days?
Yeah, last 11 years I've been a personal trainer, so I partner with a company called Camp Gladiator. We're the largest outdoor fitness program in the nation. Along with that, I'm a health coach as well, a nutrition coach as well. So anything in the fitness world is what I get to do every single day.
Very cool. Audience, check those links out. We'll post them for sure. Switching over to Ultimate a little bit, current position on the field.
So they only let me play offense now, I think due to the age. And I'm probably a hybrid. I can fit in any role. I like being a cutter. I like catching more than I like throwing.
Hey, you and me both.
Right.
Why don't you fill in the world on your ultimate origin story?
Okay, so post high school, everyone goes to that church camp and you play like 12 on 12. That's chaos. But I enjoyed throwing the Frisbee enough, so then when I went to college and somebody invited me to go to one of the practices, one of the tryouts, I figured why not. I enjoyed it, and it was organized, so I liked that a lot more. It was 7 on 7, so it gave me comfortable to know that this is an actual sport. So that was in 2004. I played 5 years of college. After that, I fell in love with the spacing and the team side of Frisbee. So I was at University of North Texas when I found out about Frisbee.
Yeah, that's awesome. So from 10 on 10 in the church league all the way to the pros. Last question here is favorite AUDL moment so far.
Let's see. I think 2018 we went up to Madison and got to play against New York in that semifinals game. I actually got hurt in that game, but it was one of the first times that I felt like, in the pro sports, we were on the big stage. Under the lights there in Madison, got to play up against New York that year, playing against one of my longtime Frisbee guys, playing against Bo. And I felt like that was the first time, man, we're pro athletes here. Under the lights, it's a legit thing. And, it was my first time to go to championship weekend. So that's my favorite AUDL moment.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm still trying to get there myself. So I'm glad that you had that experience. All right. Well, now that the audience knows you a little bit better, we're going to jump into today's game, which is, a simple one here. A simple and a classic. Fill in the blank. So, it's pretty easy. I'm going to give you a sentence with a blank in there. You fill it in and just give me a short why. Why that was your answer. So, First question here. I know you're a winter sports kind of guy. So, blank is my favorite mountain to ski.
I'm going to go Copper Mountain. That's in the summit area down, Keystone Breckenridge, where most people go. Copper Mountain, I taught my wife to ski there early in our relationship. It seems to be a less busy mountain, and a lot of really good tree skiing at Copper Mountain. So a little bit off the beaten path in the summit area, so I like Copper.
All right. That's a nice little insight there. All right, second question here. You're a Texas guy through and through. The best part of living in Keller, Texas is blank.
I'm going nightlife because bars close at 8:30 here, and so I'm early. I like to go to bed early so I can still go out, close the bars down. It's a real simple town, and so I'm gonna go to nightlife because it gets me in bed early.
All right, that is fair enough. Fair enough. Moving along here, we're gonna get a different topic, entertainment. So, between The Office and Modern Family, blank is the better TV comedy.
For me, it's The Office. Recently got into Modern Family with my wife. We started watching it. We really enjoy it. But I think The Office just has too many classic one-liners and scenes and characters. So The Office is my go-to.
All right. That's strong. I think a lot of people are with you on that. All right, last question here. Blank is the most exciting rookie on the Legion this year.
Oh boy,
I know you got a lot. I'm not trying to have you throw anybody under the bus, but who's exciting? Who's looking good out there?
You know, they pair up 2 players every year. So the guy I'm paired with, he's also a rookie. He lives close to me. I got to go with Alec Wilson Holiday. If I didn't say his name, he would ride his bike over to my house tonight and try to fight me. He's exciting to watch. He's a good kid. He's awesome. I like him a lot. He's got the right in the headspace for Frisbee. And he's doing some great things on the field. I love watching him. I love getting to play with him. So Alec Wilson Holiday is my guy.
Very cool. I was going to say props to you for picking a guy that I'm sure we have a highlight of and we can bring up. He's made some sick plays. So, that's exciting stuff right there. All right. Well, I appreciate you playing the game. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. But before we get out of here, any last shout-outs you want to give?
Ooh, shout-outs. I got one shout out to my forever Frisbee buddy, Dan Emmons, coach of the Dallas Legion this year. He's been a staple in DFW. He's been a staple from the leadership side, from the playing side. He's an all-around good dude. Dan's got a kid coming here in the next few weeks or so. They're expecting, so Dan's life's about to change. I love seeing Dan going from the player that he's been for his entire life, now being a coach. And now he gets to be a dad. And so just my big shout out, my thing goes to Dan Evans, my buddy forever. Much love to that guy.
Very cool. Shout out Dan Emmons. I've played against him a bunch. I will admit I am happy to see him on the sideline and not still out on the field. But yeah, shout out Dan Emmons. Good guy. With that in mind, we are out of time. I know I am speaking for myself and the rest of the AUDL community when I say I'm excited to watch you and the Legion take on the Carolina Flyers on Saturday. But for now, back to Evan.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Matt.
Great stuff, Matt. Thanks to you and K-Rich. Guys like Kevin give me hope that Dallas can surprise some people over the course of the next 8 weeks. They're obviously sizable underdogs heading into this Saturday's game at Carolina, but you never know. Dallas certainly has a history with the Flyers, something to keep in mind. All right, that'll do it for the show tonight. My thanks to Adam Ruffner, Daniel Cohen, Matt Smith, Kevin Richardson, and of course our editor extraordinaire, Luke Johnson. 11 games on tap this coming weekend for Week 7, including an amazing 4-game Friday night slate. It's going to be a great night to fire up AUDL.TV for DC, New York, Madison, Chicago, Colorado, Salt Lake, and Portland, LA. Look forward to breaking down all those games here on the program next week. But for now, I'm Evan Lepler. Thank you so much for checking out the show tonight. Hope you enjoy all the ultimate this weekend, and I'll talk to you again right here next Wednesday.